If you're not able to join us for the whole class tonight, you can get a replay of this class at EFTKit.com. That's EFTKIT. So as we begin, it's important to remember that you cannot be in fear and peace at the same time. And we learn from A Course in Miracles that peace is the only goal. It's the only one that's worthy of you as the child of God, and it's only one worth seeking because everything else would truly fall short of the goal of peace. And when we are in fear or worry about money or any other problem or concern, what happens is we lose track of peace. And I like to think of almost like peace, being over here on my left side and fear being on my right side. And I'm really not able to look at both places at the same time. And so today, as we are experiencing perhaps some fear or worry about the future or about money, what I'm here to do is to help you to neutralize that fear so that you can really reclaim your clarity and your focus on peace itself. Now, as we begin to focus on peace, what we're really watching for and listening for is our teacher of peace. In A Course in Miracles, this is called the Holy Spirit. You can call this divine intelligence God or Holy Spirit or Jesus or divine source or universal wisdom, whatever term is comfortable and peaceful for you. But really we are simply acknowledging that there is a higher power, and that higher power is loving and guiding and accessible. In A Course in Miracles, it says that the Holy Spirit responds eagerly to our slightest invitation. But when we are preoccupied with fear, it's almost like we've covered our eyes and we believe that the lights went out, when in fact the lights have not gone out. So sometimes when we're looking into our bank accounts or our wallets, we're not seeing the kind of abundance or the surplus or the ease that we would like to see. As we go forward, let's think about, where does our worry and fear come from? If you have a situation right now, maybe you have a retirement plan and that is not very stable, or it's declining from day to day and then shooting back up and going back down, and maybe that's unnerving. Maybe you don't have a retirement fund at all, or you had one and you used it. Maybe you are not employed at the present time, or maybe you've just been laid off. So there's the whole gamut of different challenges having to do with money. But whatever you're facing right now, you might wonder sometimes, why is this getting to me so badly? Why am I not able to handle this? Maybe in times past you were able to handle challenges better than you feel that you are right now. And what I'd like to share is that the reason for this is because you have kind of a consolidation of negative experiences perhaps. If there was a time in the past, maybe 5 years or 10 years ago or more, where your finances became drained out or less than what you wanted them to be, and maybe that really put you into a very miserable condition. And maybe you worked your way up and out of that situation, but now you find yourself kind of headed back in that direction. Well, the fear starts to come up. And the fear is that what you experienced before might happen again. And so I call that a compound fracture. It's almost like you broke your arm and then somebody comes along and bumps it again. So if you've had a bad experience before, or 2 or 5 or 10 or 100, it could go on, then no matter how many different experiences you've had, they do stack up on you. And now you might even be in a lesser of a problem than you were before, but what you're finding is that you're even more stressed than ever before. So give yourself a break and give yourself some love, because it's just that things are beginning to stack up on you. I like to think of the center of our being as having an emotional vault. And in our emotional vault, it's been with us since time began. And every time we have a problem or a concern, we sort of open up the door on that vault and we throw the problem in there and all the things we feel about it, and we close the door. And for most people, they don't know how to process the negative emotions. And then one day you're either walking down the road or driving down the road, or you hear a song or you see a sign, and all of a sudden you might have tears in your eyes, or your throat might lock up on you, and all of a sudden you're in this feeling of emotional overwhelm, and it's because your vault is full. So when our vault is full, we want to use these very powerful, simple, easy to use techniques to clear our vault so that we can get back to the peace that is our natural state of being. So when we're looking at the worry and fear of today, it always has an origin in the past. You know, right now, whatever your concern is, whatever you are facing, and I know some people are facing very challenging situations, you know, whether it's you're out of food or your rent was due 2 days ago and you didn't have it, or you feel like, you know, you've already lost your home. So my heart is with you today, and it is my goal to give you every tool I can think of during this series to help you to get to a calm place so that you can listen to your higher consciousness and receive the guidance and the answers that you are seeking. So when we have something happen in the past, and what happens is we put it in the vault, and then we defend against it happening again. You know, even if you loaned money to a friend, and maybe it was a very close friend, and that friend didn't pay you back, and that threw you into a challenging situation. And then now it's 10 years later, and maybe you loaned money to a friend again, and they are showing signs of not paying you back. You could see that all of a sudden you might have an even a greater reaction to your concern that they won't pay you back, because it's triggering that old hurt from the past that really never got cleared. So tonight we're going to be clearing some of those old negative charges that you might have from the past. You might have grown up in a home where money was not plentiful. Maybe food was there or it wasn't. Maybe it was clean, maybe it was dirty. But it could be that in your childhood, it was a very uncomfortable situation to be in. And as an adult, you're trying to defend against repeating that, either for yourself or for your family. So A Course in Miracles teaches us that we create what we defend against. And that's kind of a problem, because if we have an old experience from the past that we are defending against, if we don't do anything with that old feeling or emotion or those thoughts, we are very likely to recreate that circumstance. And we do not want to do that. And of course, we can avoid that because we have an excellent teacher of peace in the Holy Spirit, and that teacher is always ready and eager to help us out. But when we are in fear or worry about anything, we're not very good listeners. So we try to ask for help or for solutions, but our mind races back into the fear, and then we begin to block the answers that are always coming to us. So the answer tonight is to really neutralize the fear that you experienced at the time that it occurred. You know, it's not about today so much. It's about the time that you experienced that first trauma, that first uncomfortable situation, and you put that into your emotional vault and you kind of locked it away on the back shelf. Tonight we're going to bring that to the surface together. We're going to do that very peacefully. You have nothing to worry about. And if at any time you feel uncomfortable, just stop the exercise and just listen along. But I think you'll find it's a very simple process. And there might be a tear or two for some of you. So if you have a little tissue box nearby, you might need that. That's a pretty normal part of release. And if you're not feeling those tears, it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It's just that some people process in that way. So if you do have some tears, know that's a very normal part of the healing process. So today we're going to be looking into the emotional vault. We're going to be neutralizing what you might have put back on that back shelf. It's kind of like cleaning out the closet. You know, and the bigger problems that we've had in the past, they're kind of the bigger items in that closet. And if your closet was full, even if you were cleaning out a closet in your bedroom, wouldn't you first kind of crack the door open, and before it would avalanche on you, you would probably reach in and pull out a few little things to help minimize that load so that it doesn't come cascading down on you. So that's what we'll be doing together tonight, is really kind of easing into that vault very peacefully, step by step. You don't ever have to rush healing, and healing never needs to be painful. So if it's starting to feel stressful or uncomfortable, it just means that you're not quite ready to release it yet, and you want to be patient with yourself and patient with the process. And you can always come back and watch this again by watching our replay in your EFT kit at EFTkit.com. First, let's talk about EFT and what it is. It stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. And it is a quick and natural way to neutralize the negative charge that you are feeling from your negative emotions. Emotions like fear or worry, grief, sadness, frustration, disappointment, confusion, powerlessness. There are so many different feelings that we experience as being very negative. And if we have those experiences over a prolonged period of time, it actually starts to result in illness on the body, because the body is kind of under siege by your mind. It's being attacked by what A Course in Miracles would call your attack thoughts. Attack thoughts are any of those thoughts that would see yourself or another person as less than whole, less than what God created you or them to be. So EFT is non-invasive. There are no known side effects. When you use it, I would say one thing you might be aware of is if you use EFT tapping to release some of your more negative emotions, then you might find that you want to take a little nap afterward or rest. So if you are going to sit down and do some EFT for yourself in the future, make sure you have time on the back end so that you can just do some rest, and be sure to drink lots of water, maybe twice the amount of water that you normally drink, because every cell in your body is kind of dumping throughout this process, dumping that old dense energy that might have been there for a really long time. So the water helps your body to just flush out, and you'll feel so much lighter and more refreshed. So after you release the negative charge and after you've had a chance to rest, you'll find that that feeling of carrying that heavy load or the stress or the pressure or the anxiety really begins to come down. And surprisingly, our peace meter starts to come up, and that happens very naturally. So we want to get the fear down tonight, the worries, the concern, anything you can think of that you might be dwelling on or thinking about or keeping you awake at night. Let's bring those to the surface, and I will be right there with you to show you how we can release these together. And anytime you feel like you have that need to rest, just remember that's a very natural reaction to the technique. If you're feeling charged up in any kind of a negative way, it's good to apply EFT at a time when you have plenty of time to take care of it. So we're going to talk now about how to use EFT, and in this brief tutorial I'll be moving pretty quickly, and you could always go back and watch different segments again and again. Of course, we go over all of these steps in depth in our EFT with the Source Technique Mastery Training Series, but tonight I just want to get right to that healing process so you can start feeling some of your relief. But we use EFT on different energy tapping points on the body. These are the same points that we use for acupressure and acupuncture, but they are located closer to the surface of the skin. And you can actually access them by just tapping with your fingertips on these different places on the body. And remember, these points are closer to the surface of the skin, so instead of using needles or pressure, we can just use our fingertips, just like I'm doing right now. And if you could see me, you'd see that I'm going right down through the tapping points on my body, and we will discuss what those points are. I prefer to use one hand to tap at a time. Some people like to tap using two hands at a time, and I find that when you're using it for emotional healing or for releasing stress or fear, that actually using one hand at a time is much more peaceful. And that's something you can decide for yourself, and you can certainly ramp up and use two hands at a time. But tonight we'll be focused more on using one hand at a time. Let's talk about the tapping points, the EFT tapping points and where they are. We'll start now with just right up here at the top of the head. There's one right up on the top of your head, and I like to tap on the top of my head in about the diameter of about a nickel or a quarter, kind of around in a little circle, because if you just go up and down with your tapping right on the top of your head, you might find that to be kind of invasive or uncomfortable. So just tap around in a little circle right there on the top of your head. There's another one that's called the eyebrow point, and it's on the inside of each eyebrow, so you can split your first finger and your middle finger about an inch apart, and you can actually place one finger on the inside of each eyebrow right over the bridge of your nose, and that's called the eyebrow point. And then there's one right on the side of your eye. It's not back on the temple. It's actually right there on the side of your eye in the bone socket. And you can tap on either side, on your right side of your eye over by your ear, or on the left side of your left eye over by your ear. But it's right there on the edge of the bone socket. There's another one right under your eye, just straight down from the pupil on the top of your cheek. And we'll just call that one under the eye, or sometimes you might hear people talk about it as the cheek point. It's the same thing. And now there's one right under your nose, between your nostrils and your upper lip, and that one's called under the nose. And some people pass that point up because it's right there under the nose, but actually it feels really good when you use it. And as you tap, you'll notice a clearing that goes kind of down the back of your throat, and there's really no other tapping point that clears away. It's almost like the mucus that's kind of down in the back of your head and your throat. So I really like this point, and it's good to use it when you're going down through the tapping sequence. There's another one right there on your chin, kind of on the top of the chin. If you were pondering a thought and using your fingertips on your chin as you ponder, you would land right there on the top side of your chin, and that's called the chin point. Another one that we'll be using tonight is called the heart point, and or over the heart. And if you were to find the area, it's kind of a fleshy area between your collarbone and the top of your heart. There's a little fleshy area right out there in the middle, and again tapping around in a little circle about the size of a quarter. And you can use all your fingertips and tap around in a circle, or you can actually use one or two fingertips, whatever feels more comfortable for you. But you want to tap hard enough so that you feel it and you feel some sensation as you're moving through the process, but not so hard that you create any kind of a bruising or discomfort during the process. Now, a lot of people store a lot of heavy negative emotions right there over the heart and on that same point on the other side of your chest. So those points can be very sensitive to begin with. I know now after years of tapping I have no sensitivity there and I can tap anytime. But when I first started tapping, I did find those points to be rather sensitive, and I would have to use other tapping points in the process and then just come back to those as the sensitivity would start to go away. So we have the one over the heart and then an equal point right over on the other side of the chest in that fleshy area, and I'll just call that one the other side of the chest. There's another one we use on the thymus gland, and it's right there on the center of your chest, just slightly above the breastbone and down below your neck, so right out there in the center of the chest. And I will just refer to that as the center of the chest point. There's another one also on the side of your hand. We call it the karate chop point. And in this one, it's right down at the base of your pinky finger, but still on the fleshy part on the side of your hand, but closer to the base of your finger instead of closer to your wrist. So it's right there at the base of your pinky finger, and you can tap with maybe your index finger and your middle finger, or some people like to tap with all four of their fingers at the same time in a line right across that karate chop point. Now that point is available on either your left or your right hand, but I do find some added relief when I use my left hand more than my right hand, and perhaps it is because the heart is on the left side of the body, so maybe that's why there's just a little more sensitivity, and so that's something you can check out for yourself. Another one that we might be using tonight would be inside the knees. And when I'm down in the lower body, I go ahead and use two hands, unless, of course, you're holding your phone while you're listening to this or you're trying to do something else. But you can use one hand or two hands, and we're going down to right there inside your kneecaps, one on each side and one on each leg. So pretty easy to get to those points. There are several other tapping points, but those are the ones that we will be using tonight to get you some relief. So in your EFT kit, you will have our EFT tapping points diagram. You'll get 10 of our customized EFT cards with language from A Course in Miracles on a variety of very important topics. And you will receive the replay from this teleclass. Remember, it's EFTkit.com, and 2 very powerful, thorough videos. One is our EFT Level 1 training course, and the other one is Releasing Fear and Shame About Money. So as we go through our tapping points together, the first thing that we'll do is we will acknowledge what you're feeling. And we don't want to censor that. I will be giving you some of that language tonight, and you can certainly pick up the language off of our customized EFT cards once you receive those. But be sure to let yourself edit those cards in your mind as you're using those cards to make the language as resonant and impactful to your own situation. Customize it for yourself. You know, if we're talking about anger, but you're really feeling more of a frustration, then if I use the word anger, then you go ahead and substitute in your mind the word frustration. Or if you're using this at home, you can just say the word out loud, the word that is much closer to your own personal emotion. And I will try to use more general words that everyone can benefit from, but be sure to do that editing as we go along. This is a spiritually based program. I'm using principles from A Course in Miracles. I might use some terms that you don't use directly or personally, so please feel free to edit my words and to not make the words mean as much as getting a hold of the content of what it is that's bothering you so we can release that together. Tonight we're going to go ahead and get to our tapping exercise, and I can explain more about why it works and how it works later. But let's go to that topic of fear about money. You know, fear about money is something that so many people in the world right now are worrying about and paying attention to. You know, right now, you know, the stock market's going back and forth in pretty major swings, so that can get people unnerved and on edge. Other people who don't have money to invest in the stock market, they're just trying to figure out how to, you know, take care of shelter and get food and take care of their families. And so there's so many different things that we have to focus on throughout the day. So it is pretty normal that we find ourselves in a place of worry or concern, and EFT is one of the quickest ways to neutralize those heavy emotions. So whenever you take any of our programs or teleclasses or tutorials, we are asking that you agree in advance that you are going to take full responsibility for your health. I am going to share with you very non-invasive techniques. If you ever feel uncomfortable, please pause and take care of yourself and rest. Or if I use words that are not comfortable for you, even as much as I am trying to make them comfortable, please edit them or do what you can to make sure this is a pleasing process for you. But we are asking that you waive all any liability that we might have, because I'm not there right with you in the room and I'm not able to gauge how you're receiving this information. So please watch after yourself, and of course we call upon the highest and wisest place of our consciousness to make sure that your healing process is as peaceful and expedient as possible.